What's good, folks? Family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth, to another episode of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin, presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. That is One Pie Pizza. Find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. Also, check out their catering division, Elevated Catering of Buffalo. Everything they do food-wise is tremendous. And like I say every time, they're really good people making really good food. So go give them a shout and a check out. I'm your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro2_ANT. Find me on Blue Sky at proant. No underscores there, just PROANT. In this episode of Disguise Coverage, it is Buffalo Bills training camp eve. It is Tuesday, July 22nd, meaning Wednesday, July 23rd. 9:45 a.m. is when Buffalo Bills training camp kicks off. And so on tonight's show, we are going to be diving into the top questions heading into Buffalo Bills training camp. There's a multitude of different titles I could have given for this episode, but essentially the crux of this episode is answering several pieces, questions, concerns, position groups, under the radar storylines, who or what you're most eager to see during training camp, a bunch of pieces and avenues like that as we get ready for training camp, which will then lead us into the preseason and then lead us into the regular season. So that's what we will be diving into in this episode of Disguise Coverage. And I say we because I'm not alone in this episode. I'm joined by the same person who joined me for this episode last year. I was going to say at this time, which is technically true, but also probably not the exact same date, but who cares? Those are details that people don't care about. Welcome to the show, Mr. Joe Marino of Locked on Bills, Locked on NFL Scouting, and all the worlds that you live in that are all fantastic because you do quality work. You're a quality person. I appreciate you taking the time, especially knowing that you are an early to bed, early to rise kind of guy. So I appreciate you staying up late night and joining me. Thank you very much. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Pete, it's good to be with you. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk training camp and, the things that are burning up my mind right now. But of course, what we all know about the Disguise Coverage podcast is that it's the only podcast that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in every muffin.
Yes.
And I've heard you say that so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally want to ask you a question about that.
Okay.
What is the amount of blueberries that's the ideal amount for a blueberry muffin? I mean, it's one thing to say that you get the same amount in every muffin, which who wouldn't love that consistency? But
true.
What's that number? What's that perfect number?
You know what's funny is I don't know what that. Well, first I'll answer your question with a question. Do you know where that line is from?
Not a clue.
So it's from the movie Casino.
Yeah,
Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and essentially it's De Niro's running this casino, and he's sitting talking over business, and he gets a muffin and he opens it, and it's just. This is such a stupid thing. The muffin distribution is just like terrible in his muffin versus the blueberry muffin of the person he's sitting with. Yeah. And he interrupts the conversation to be like, you see this? And the guy's like, what? He's like, look at your muffin and look at mine. He's like, this is terrible. He gets up, takes the plates back to the kitchen, and he just goes to the chef and tells him this is unacceptable. He's like, there has to be an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. That's it. So technically, I don't know the answer. If I had to put a rough estimate, I would say, RJ says the correct answer is 27. I would say, I feel like a handful is too much because that could really overpower. I think slightly less than a handful. So I'm going to say like 11.
11.
That's my answer. Yeah, because I feel like if you got a handful, depending on how big your hand is, I feel like that's 20 plus blueberries. And I think that's going to overpower the muffin and it's just going to be too much blueberry. So I feel like kind of splitting that. Yeah, I'm thinking like 11 to 13, depending on the size of the blueberry.
I'll have to do some research. I'll have to grind some tape. I'll have to eat a few blueberry muffins, do the counts, and figure out like what's that amount. I think it's an important thing for us to attack here.
If anything, I'm actually significantly disappointed in myself for not having a better answer. No one's ever asked me that, nor have I ever thought of it. I feel, like kind of alluded to what you said. We'll get better. We'll improve from here. I'll go back. We'll study the tape. We'll self-scout, and I'll figure it out.
Mission accomplished. I was hoping that you would get twisted up. when I
did it.
asked that, and it happened. So
I thought you were going to ask me, where's that from? And so I was like, oh, yeah, the movie Casino. And then you asked me how many blueberries. In my head, I was like, fudge. I have an answer. I like that.
must have spoke to you. Casino must be like a big movie for you, one of your favorites. I mean, it's
Yes, it is
podcast intro.
it's my favorite like mob related movie, like over Goodfellas, over The Untouchables, like anything mob related, Godfather, anything. Like Casino is my number one, and it is in my top 5 like favorite movies of all time.
I feel like
I've watched it. Go ahead.
When I heard you go through that and saying that Robert De Niro said it, in my mind, I was imagining that Robert De Niro voice.
Yeah.
And now I want to like see that scene.
Yeah. It's even Claude comes in the comment and the chef is like, you know how long that's going to take? Yeah. The chef is like upset. And De Niro's wearing like, of course, like he's De Niro, but he also he's wearing this like really fine like suit, and but he just brushes off the crumbs and he like hands him the plate. Yeah. It's a really good, it's a quality movie. I've seen it probably. Oh, it's one of those movies too that like they would play on these random movie channels throughout like a lot of my 20s and that. So like I could be on the computer, like all jokes aside, like I'd be on the computer, like watching tape or doing something football related, and I have Casino on in the background. So I've watched it like front to back, focused on it easily over like 15 times, but then having it play in the background, I probably watched it like 30 plus times.
Wow. That's more than I have. Because I'm 0 for me. But
you got to get on it. I need you to watch it and then tell me what you think, because it's a huge statement.
Now I feel like this is Josh Allen on Kyle Brandt's basement. You're giving me a movie assignment.
You got to get back to it. Yeah. Stop watching like football tape, and I need you to watch some Casino tape.
Stop watching Miss Rachel is more. That's what's fair. On the tube right now with the 1-year-old.
Hop, little bunny, hop, 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 little bunny, hop, hop, hop.
I've never
sticky bubble gum. I gotcha,
brother. That is the soundtrack of my life.
I hear it in my nightmares.
Mama, Mama, can you say?
There's a couple bangers though. Like,
the best one's Icky Sticky.
Yes,
Icky Sticky Bubblegum is terrific.
Yeah, that's a banger. Absolutely, 1000%.
Yeah. Mr. Mr. Golden Sun.
Oh,
not bad, right?
Classic.
The elephant. What would you do? What would you say?
Yes.
La 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 la. Yeah.
It's just,
bro. Yeah.
We can keep talking Miss Rachel if you want. I'm here. You want to do that?
Oh, it's funny. The pre-show we talked about a farming podcast. So I mean, who knows if we ever talk training camp? That's tomorrow, right? Is that tomorrow?
I guess. I don't know. Who cares? We're getting on the farm and we're going from there. Yeah, that's also kind of a little peak for, I think we started at like 9:03, 9:04, and that's because Joe and I were talking offline about just a bunch of, this is good. Charles said draft dads. That's good.
Let's do it, man. What's
draft
better than
dads
this?
And lockdown farms.
What's better than this,
I like it. Woo, I like this one. What did I just turn into? We don't know.
It's a good question.
We don't know how we got here. Just
Anthony and the dude, you start off the pre-show with like, hey man, we're gonna be kind of business-like here. I'm gonna get you out of here on time. I'm gonna ask you these questions. I may or may not like weave in my answers. And here I am talking about muffins and Miss Rachel.
I don't know how we got here.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got here. I guess I disguised the true, coverage that we were going with on this episode.
It's entropy. What is that word? I never heard of this word. The guy that got hired by the Bills?
Yeah.
He did the project on, is it safety and is it entropy?
Yeah, I believe so.
I never even heard the word.
I just know, entropy, and I confuse it with the other one that it sounds like that. That's another science-related term. I'm more the soft sciences, like sociology and psychology, not so much the hard sciences like biology and chemistry.
I'm not any of it. Yeah. So
fair.
No science for me.
Just the science of football.
Yeah.
Should we talk Bills?
Save us. We
could just do more Miss Rachel karaoke. I'm down.
I know.
Save us.
Yeah, that'll be tomorrow all day for me. So
that's fair. That is fair. So yeah, we'll pivot and start talking Bills training camp pieces. We've got 5 questions that we will be going through in this episode. And for those of you watching live and playing at home with us, feel free to put into the comments your answers, your thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, anything and everything you got as we go through. Feel free to comment on our answers and our dialogue as we go back and forth with one another and discuss these questions and have an organic conversation about the Buffalo Bills, football in general, anything and everything. So yeah, Joe, we'll go in order from the list that I sent you. And we'll start with this. The question that you need answered the most coming out of training camp. What is it and why?
Yeah, I want to say the questions that you sent in advance are good questions, but there's so many answers that I could have given to the questions, which forces you to pick the one thing that's most important. And so I thought that was important for me to say right off the bat, because my goodness, there's so many things I want so many questions I want answered, but I think the one that I want answered most is, how ready is Maxwell Hairston? How ready? Bill's first round pick, corner out of Kentucky. The alternative is Trey White and whatever's left in the tank there. You know, I think in one hand, Trey White, you're concerned, right? The last few years have been injuries and kind of coming back from it, and he had a healthy year last year. But I mean, the Rams signed him to be a starter. They gave him 4 games and said, get out of town, get to the Ravens, and, you know, it kind of plays in their dime package. And you don't love the trajectory, but you're also mindful of, hey, maybe a couple of years removed from the injury, maybe he can go, right? And he knows the defense and that type of stuff. But the reality is, the excitement that I have for Maxwell Hairston transcends any curiosity that I have about what's left of the tank for Trey White. And we've never really seen McDermott with this type of CB2, right? Like with not only the athletic profile that he brings to the table, but just the investment of a premium asset in a CB2. It's not Levi Wallace or Dane Jackson or Kevin Johnson, you know, or Josh Norman, who was like 5th round pick. You know, this is a legit first round player with a different skill set, right? Like athleticism for days. I've said this before, but you don't really watch players and think to yourself, that guy runs a 4.2.
Yeah.
You did with Hairston. Like you watched the college tapers, like, that guy runs a 4.2.
Yeah,
like you would say, I bet he runs a 4.3.
Yeah. I wrote that in my notes. I was like 4.3 capable. Like, and I wrote that, and then he ran the 4.2. I was like, oh, that tracks.
Yeah, not surprised. Like, not even a little bit surprised. So that athleticism shows up, and I think the Bills need to be more willing to be more tighter with their coverage shells. And Hairston's skill set affords them that opportunity. You know, I say things on podcasts all the time when you're playing against a guy like Tyreek Hill. I will say something like, well, nobody has a corner that can match steps with him. Hello. Hi. Welcome. Welcome, Maxwell Hairston. He can match steps with anybody in the world. And so the possibilities that exist with him paired with Christian Benford, who I think the world of, it just really excites me. And this team was bad at stopping the pass last year. I mean, EPA was bottom 10, third downs were deplorable. This is your opportunity to change some of that. And I'm excited to see how it comes together. And I want Maxwell Hairston to start. I want him to be awesome. The word that kept coming to mind when watching him at Kentucky was he hunts. He hunts, man. This guy hunts the ball. And like, no, he's not a big, like, lay the wood tackler, but he was pretty assertive, like in his, when he was not dealing with the shoulder injury, of like, hey, taking on and being that run defender and taking, you know, playing off contact. I love the way he played. And so my number one question I need answered is how ready is he to go? And how soon is this excitement that I have going to be manifested in the way that he plays on the field across from Christian Benford? I'm excited to see where it's at. And, you know, I think they drafted him to start. Obviously, that's what you do with a first round pick. And, you know, Brandon Beane was asked about that possibility. And he said, look, if he's not ready to go, we like the veterans that are in place, but he'll have to earn it. That's true, right? He'll have to earn it. That's true for everyone in Buffalo. But I want to see how ready he is. That's the number one thing I want answered. I mean, obvious stuff like, you know, the injuries and things like that, but like kind of really lasering in. It's how ready is Maxwell Hairston?
I think that's a fair answer. And you know, so many of the points you brought up, and I find him so intriguing of a prospect and his fit within this team because, to your point, like they have not had a corner like him, and so many people I think kind of conflated the athleticism and speed that he has with what Kyer Elam was coming out of Florida. But Kyer Elam was not the zone competent corner that Maxwell Hairston is. And Hairston's ability to play in zone, but then use that athleticism to recover, to trigger, to close down, the fluidity in and out of breaks. And I find that skill set, for a lot of the reasons you said, like so intriguing to add to this defense for what it means for this year, but also just because they really haven't had that a lot. And then you add in the tackling piece, which I'm glad you mentioned as well. Man, I had so many people. Yeah, I put together a compilation of tackles and missed tackles from his time at Kentucky, his previous year, and then 2 years ago, and then this past season. And I presented it without comment. And so many people were coming in being like, "Oh, you're putting him on blast for missing tackles," and I never said any of that. And my thought always with him and his tackling was his willingness to tackle, similar to kind of blocking. Willingness is such an important piece. Like if you are a willing blocker and a willing tackler, that helps tremendously. And then my biggest things were, the areas that he had to work on as far as tackling were just little things like angles to the ball and angles to the, ball carrier, his approach, and then some size and frame concerns. But he's going to play a little thicker. And we know this coaching staff can coach up corners on the run defense piece. So I was like, I can't teach a guy to have that kind of athleticism and be able to run a 4.2 and have that feel for coverage that he has. But I can teach a guy to, here's how we want you to come up. Here's how we want you to be as a force player. This is what you need to do when you're kind of finishing. And then pairing that with, let's get you to add like 5 or 8 pounds, something like that. But then on the other side of that, he's got some really nice tackles and some really nice sticks on tape and some forced fumbles. And again, you see the willingness. He's not shying away from contact. And I thought that was so important. But it is funny, like the idea of him on the opposite side of Benford. Like Benford to me, I don't think I think he's an elite run like support player. But I don't think there's any one coverage area or like skill set piece aside from that where I think he's like elite. I think he's above average at worst, but I think he's like very good at almost like everything across the board. Like he's got some size, some frame, some athleticism, some physicality, some fluidity, some speed. He can cover a variety of body types. You can watch him bang with the bigger guys, but then also cover like Brian Thomas Jr. and Tyreek Hill. And he knows he has the foot speed and athleticism for it, but he also knows how to position his body to cut him off and do different things. But the type of corner and what you mentioned, like the type of corner that he is, and then on the other side, you just got this juiced up athletic rookie that you're trying to bring along. I think like that pairing is also something that I'm extremely excited for because we haven't seen, even when it was Trey was in there. Trey was an all-pro corner, and it was the technical ability of Trey, and then no disrespect, but the safeness or the responsibility of the other corner, whoever corner 2 was. This could, if Hairston like works out how you envision him as a first-round corner, this could be a very strong corner duo for years to come, considering Benford is locked up from a contract perspective and Harris is a rookie. Like this could just be really exciting.
Yeah, I think they're both locked in for 4 years, right?
Yeah. So yeah, not including the Harrison option. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I was going to comment on something that I have, but I'll save it for later in the essence of time. All right, next question that we got. Anything else on that first one? Any other question that came close? Any other thing you want to put out here, or do you want to move on to our next question?
I could talk about Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman, and dude, there's so much I could say. But the number one thing was Maxwell Harrison. I'm glad you mentioned the willingness component, and the player that when you were talking about that came to mind was CJ Henderson.
From Florida. Good call.
Yeah, man, I have irreconcilable differences with his approach to tackling. Like, just made business decisions. Like, I would hate if I was his teammate. I would hate him. I would.
That's fair.
I would hate him. That's not Maxwell Harrison, right?
Yeah, no.
So
no. And I think that was the biggest misconception. Like having to like work on your tackling to a degree isn't the same as like, oh, he doesn't want to tackle. I think those two things got conflated, and that cannot be farther from the truth.
Exactly.
And again, when it works for him, it's nice, especially for being a smaller dude. He's got like some detonation capability, and you're like, oh, okay. And then you pair that with the coverage chops.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. All right. Next question. The biggest concern that you have going into Buffalo Bills training camp is?
Man, another one that there's a ton of good answers. I'm thinking about calling an audible. I'm not going to do it. I'm sticking with my original answer.
I do that all the time. I do my notes so that I get into the show, and right at the last minute, I pivot to like something else. Like I'm taking a, but it's like you're doing a multiple choice test. You go with your first answer. Don't cross it out and go to the next.
Well, the thing that I feel the urgency to talk about, I kind of have queued up for another question. So
that's
fair. We'll stay the course. We'll stay the course.
That's fair.
The biggest concern that I have going into camp is Cole Bishop's development.
Oh, I have this for and for those playing at home, I'm trying to be cognizant of Joe's time. Regular viewers and watchers and listeners of the show know that this show tends to go very long, so I'm being cognizant of Joe's time. I will keep my answers to the back end of the show after we say goodbye to Joe. So if anyone's like, "Oh, how come you're not giving yours?" I wanted to put that there. But yes, I have this for a separate answer. I like it. Go ahead.
So it's not that I don't like Cole Bishop or I'm not optimistic about him. I am. I really am. I think Sean McDermott's resume with safeties is off the charts, and we've really never seen him have this high profile of a guy, a second round pick that they tried to trade up for. It's this resume of safeties is like nobody's that he turned into something, right? Like now you got a somebody that you need to turn into a somebody. And I think Cole Bishop had a really tough rookie season with how it started. A three-way battle with a veteran in Mike Edwards and Damar Hamlin and himself in this three-way battle. And, they're trying to get sampling of each guy. And then you get to camp and like everyone's hurt except for Damar Hamlin. And so Cole Bishop just missed so much foundational time. Even Brandon Beane has recently said it would be hard for a rookie at safety to come in and start for this defense. It's probably even more difficult when you're not getting the most important reps during camp. And so I think that's an important layer because, the next thing you know, this guy's starting in week 4 out of necessity against the Houston Texans. And that was rough, man. It was a rough game. But I highlight that because I think it does. If that's your starting point and you see the end point, I don't think that he became an impact player at all for the Bills as a rookie, but he went from a guy that I didn't think was playable to, okay, like the defense can survive with him on the field as a rookie. And I think that's okay. I mean, he played, right, it was a 470 something snaps. So he got his feet wet. He got, he started the AFC Championship game. It's meaningful, right? And now the opportunity for him to come into year 2. And dude, I remember listening to him last year during OTAs, and you just kind of felt like he was drinking through a fire hose with like learning the
love
defense,
that phrase,
right? Like it just kind of felt that way. And then McDermott, when he was asked a few weeks ago about, Cole Bishop in year 2 and like what's the most important thing, and he talked about like mastering the system and allowing, because if he masters the system, then we could see the true skill set, and then he can learn how to use the system to kind of cheat, right, and position himself to make more plays. And I want to see that happen. And I think so much about that transition of your last college season into the all-star circuit and the combine and team meetings. And the next thing you know, you're drafted and you got to play. That wasn't Cole Bishop's offseason this year. It was the only thing he cared about was being a safety for the Buffalo Bills. It wasn't how high he can jump in a vertical, right? Or flying across the country going to team meetings. It was a very defined focus. It should have been. And so I'm excited to see where that positions him this year to deliver on the promise of a second-round pick. And for me, I'm just looking for ceiling for this defense. And that's a big reason why I picked Maxwell Hairston for my number one thing that we talk about, that what I need answered. It's like, I think this defense is performed really well in the regular season. I think there's a lot of disappointment for the postseason. I think there's been some injuries that have been very unfortunate in some of those elimination games, but ultimately I want to see the ceiling of this defense elevated. And I think that the Bills have done the best that they can with like cerebral know-how guys on defense, but maybe they had some like physical limitations.
Yes.
With Bishop, size and athleticism is there. So now can we get the system down and like be an impact player, because I think that's a piece of this defense that can elevate compared to where it was last year. And I mean, obviously the transition from Hyde and Poyer was always going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect it to be perfect right away, but now you're kind of into this. And Taylor Rapp's one of the dudes, and I want to see Cole Bishop come together and, you know, be the player the Bills drafted to be in the second round. I'm not saying he can or can't do it, but that's like the concern that I have, because I think that can mean so much for the ceiling of this defense, which I think needs to be elevated.
So that's fair. I have this for the next question that we'll be answering. The safety group is my answer for that question for a lot of the same reasons you put. And you and I have talked about this on Locked On. I've talked about it here on the show a bunch. I like Rapp, and again, this is going off of the idea and the notion that the likely starting safety duo, or I think the one that the Bills want, is Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop, especially with how much Taylor Rapp matters as a communicator on the back there. We've heard the coaching staff talk about it. You can see it on the tape. Like, he has become a significant vocal piece for them in the secondary, or just in the defense in general, and as part of that brain trust there. So you're most likely, in an ideal world for the Bills, you're looking at a safety tandem of Rapp and Bishop. And I like both of those players in a vacuum more than I do as a tandem, just because of how their skill sets potentially play off of one another. And I've talked about like how I feel like they kind of not necessarily butt heads, but Rapp has the smarts and the processing and the eyes to do what you need from a coverage perspective, but he doesn't necessarily have the athleticism or the range that you'd like in single high instances.
Mm-hmm.
Bishop has more of that athleticism and the juice, but doesn't yet have the processing piece. And I still contend the further he gets away from the line of scrimmage, and this doesn't mean he's bad or can't get better, the further away he gets from the line of scrimmage, in my evaluation, the worse he gets. I like him in the box, apex player, like big nickel type. He might be off ball. He's blitzing. Give me him in the hook to curls and the flats as much as possible, or if he's playing, if he's a line deeper, give me him as like a robber or that buzz safety. And so I think there's questions about how he fits in the Bills defense in general. Like, I thought he would have been great in like the Patriots defense from the past couple of years, or the Ravens, or even the Cardinals, teams that use more 3 safety looks or try to confuse you in that regard. But again, that doesn't mean he can't grow into this system. But between that and then his pairing with Taylor Rapp, where I also feel like Rapp is better the closer he gets to the line of scrimmage because of range issues, but also doesn't have the athleticism that Bishop has to man up against tight ends and some running backs. Not to mention, for my money, I think Taylor Rapp's best ability right now is his ability to tackle from depth. Like, the way he fills alleys and closes does not. Yes, and I know so many people have to throw it, he's all the friendly fire and he's always hitting his own guys. I think that is unfortunately overshadowed how many like 65-yard house calls he saved because of him filling from a single high or 2 high alignment, coming up and sticking dudes. And yeah, it's a gain of 10 or 11 or 12, but if he doesn't make that sound tackle he makes, it's a house call. It's, 12 yards in a cloud of dust type of deal. What do you think of the potential tandem or pairing of Rapp and Bishop? Because you and I also talked on, I don't remember what episode of Locked On it was. We also talked about the idea of like, don't be surprised if Derek Forrest makes some kind of noise with his skill set between the mental and the physical. So where do you stand on kind of, how you think that potential pairing meshes? Do you think it's ideal? And granted, you just spoke about that kind of what Bishop needs to do and where he stands.
I see the two players very similarly, and I think, to really sum it up, is they're just not very interchangeable players. Yeah, where with Poyer and Hyde, it's like, all right, what do you need them to do? They can do it. Yep. And it's fine. And it doesn't matter. They can do it all. And I don't feel the same way about these players. Mm-hmm. And even with Bishop at Utah, like if you were to read my report on him, it's all best in low alignments, triggering, tackling.
Similar with the other, him and Vaki, even though Vaki's a running back now, they were both like just heat-seeking missiles, get him closer to the line and let him just murk guys.
And I liked his man coverage against tight ends. And so I was like, okay, that's what he can give.
Yeah, but cool. So put him in the box and let him do it.
The deeper stuff, it's just like, that's just not where he excels. And I agree that Taylor Rapp is also good at the things minus the man coverage, but his ability to play in deeper alignments is so much better, even though he's not nearly the same athlete. So
exactly, which is why it's such a like frustrating, like, you know what I'm trying to get at here. I don't know how to verbalize it, but it's yeah.
They're just not. They're not very complementary. They're not super interchangeable. So, and I think that's like most teams don't have Poyer and Hyde together. Like that's a rare situation, and so I think that's a benefit that the Bills had in the past that they don't have right now. And so, what is on the menu for Cole Bishop this year? And do they ask him to play in deeper alignments? And can he, like, not, I don't think you want him as your one high guy, but can he be a deep split zone safety and, play in deep halves? Like, I think that's going to be important for him to be able to do. So yeah, I have a lot of the same questions that you have, but also they had Taylor Rapp, like kind of in that third safety role. He got that onboarding year with Poyer and Hyde, and then they signed him to the 3-year extension, and then they drafted Cole Bishop. So like they made a choice that this was like the direction they wanted the safety group to go. So for as much as I sit here and say, I don't think they're super interchangeable and I'm not sure they're super complementary, the Bills completely disagree with me.
Fair.
Be right. Yeah.
That's fair. That's that's kind of been like in the back of my mind as well, even when it's kind of like, well, like every time I not come around to the idea, but the thought of crosses my mind of like, Rapp doesn't have a lot of dead cap. If they decide to cut him, it really could be pretty easy. And then I'm like,
they love him.
Yeah, exactly. Like they love him and everything has kind of been forecasted towards moving forward with him. So yeah, that's an excellent point. Very excellent point. All right. This next question that we will be answering, the position group for you, Joe, that you will be watching the most during Bills training camp.
You ever see these social media posts where it's like, if I ever say this, then it's a cry for help?
Oh yeah.
If my answer to this is ever not O-line, D-line, something wrong. Something happened to me. You call my wife,
Fair enough.
Do a wellness check on me, please. It's always going to be O-line, D-line, even if I don't have questions. That's just where my eyes are. Yeah. My objective at camp is I try to watch the most competitive thing that's happening on the field. And that puts me a lot of times with O-line, D-line. I'm never going to watch receiver, corner, one-on-ones over O-line, D-line one-on-ones.
It's like the same thing at the Senior Bowl. Yeah, I always just gravitate towards like the one-on-one battles in the trenches.
I know where I'm going to be.
Yeah.
You tell me how that route running went and who covered well. Yeah. I mean, we'll see the team stuff, but I'm always interested in O-line, D-line. And I think the O-line, the top 9 guys are back, and there's not a whole lot of mystery there, but for the D-line, there's a lot of new pieces there with Bosa and Hoyt and Ogunjobi and the 3 draft picks trading up for 2 defensive tackles, Dwayne Carter in year 2. I want to see that for sure. I want to see how those guys are moving. I want to see the combinations that they tinker with. I think we're going to see a lot of games and like sim pressures and what combinations do they like together? When they're sending Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano on blitzes, like who are they working with? You're going to get some really good indicators based on that. So O-line, D-line is definitely, but mostly D-line is where my eyes will be. But maybe this year more than usual, I probably will want to watch the receivers and corners because of, I talked about Maxwell Hairston. We're going to get my next 2 talking points are going to be rooted in some receiver stuff. And I think that's a really important layer to this team's success in 2025. But this D-line is to me, it's been the inability to get organic pressure on Mahomes. That's the biggest problem going right now. I want to get a feel for where that's at.
Very fair. My answer, as I alluded to, previously, again, I'm going to talk about this more in depth, once we send Joe on his way. But my answer here was the safeties, but that's in part because I had multiple other answers here that involved the defensive line. So much. And I think for me, a lot of my questions, some can be answered in training camp for the defensive line. A lot of it is, unfortunately, for me, I feel like going to be answered in season. Like my biggest one is still, how do they mitigate displacement on the interior against the run? Like, do they keep getting knocked backwards and left and right like they did last year for these big gashes? Like, how do we see that rotation inside? But again, we're going to see that more when the Bullets are live come regular season, but we'll get some indicators during training camp. And then you mentioned
AP, that was the nicest way you could have said, what are they going to do about their D tackles getting blown off the ball all the time, man?
Yeah.
How are they going to mitigate displacement? Come on, man. Let's call it what it is.
That's fair. Yeah, they got blown off the ball a lot. And I still maintain the phrasing I used in season last year that I'm still using is the best way for the Bills to stop the run last year was game script.
To score.
Yes. And make teams be like, oh, crap, we're down 21. We got to stop running the ball. If it was close and teams were able to run the ball, they were in trouble because the only way they could stop the run, see the Rams game, for instance, the only way they could stop the run was to load the box, gap out, and win with numbers. And then that would put them at a coverage disadvantage in terms of what they could get to and what they looked like. And even the Lions game is a good example the next week. They got so beat up against the run with the Rams that the next week against the Lions, the very first play, there's like 9 guys in the box. And Cole Bishop makes that tackle because you could tell they were like, we're not going to get run on. It's just not. And Detroit was almost kind of like, well, we're going to try and run on you. And the Bills had the numbers advantage. And before you knew it, the Bills had a ton of points on the board. And the Lions were like, well, we're only going to be able to run it 15 times because we're down a bunch. Let's pass the hell out of the ball. And they ended up making it close at the end. But between game script and gapping out, that was the way the Bills were able to stop the run. And gapping out at times would present some problems based on the type of front and interior that they have and being a one gap penetrating type of front, so on and so forth. But yeah, I am worried about that, especially because they leaned into more of what they have already been. Instead of getting more run stoppers on the inside, they were like, nope, we're leaning into Larry Ogunjobi. Nope, we're leaning into TJ Sanders. Like they leaned more into pass rush and penetration and, getting through your gaps and create, and that can work. You can penetrate, you can slice, you can create havoc, especially if you're pairing it with stunts and games and all this stuff. But all the stunts and movement does have a risk reward nature to it. And at the end of the day, somebody other than Daquan Jones is going to be able to have to handle a double team and not get displaced on duo, or teams just be like, we're going to run duo and run it down your throat and knock you off the ball. And Ed Oliver, for as much as he's undersized, he'll drop the knee and reduce the service area and battle against the run. But I don't want my 290-pound defensive tackle to have to battle against double teams all the time. But guess what? The guys behind him are also in that mold, just a little bigger. And then your second level is Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard and Taron Johnson.
225 pounds.
Bang. And all of a sudden you get into a spot where the spine can be compromised and teams can be like, well, we're just going to keep running the ball at you because we don't think you can stop it. And then they're like, okay, well, let's put 8 and 9 in the box. And it's like, all right, now do you hold up one-on-one on the outside? Do you get gashed with play action, so on and so forth? I think it could be a potential chain reaction of negativity. So I want to see what it looks like in camp, because the Bills' O-line is good, and we know they can people move in a variety of ways, but and I don't want to use Baltimore as a week 1 example because Baltimore's a unicorn, and they run the ball on everybody.
They show up with 200 yards rushing every game.
Correct. That's it. So I'm not going to come out of that game and be like, see, there it is. Everything's on fire. But
I expect in week 1 for the Baltimore Ravens to get 175-plus rushing yards against the Bills.
Yeah, that's what, like, if I'm the Ravens, like, your game plan going into that should be, like, Lamar passes the ball, I don't know, like 21 or 22 times. Like, you should be running the hell out of the ball.
And I'd like to extend the most sincere thank you I can to John Harbaugh and what's the OC's name? Todd Monken, for in that divisional round game to not do that. It was really cool. It was much appreciated.
Just like they friggin' did the year before against Kansas City, where it was like, why aren't you running the ball? Just run the football.
Because I think they want to validate Lamar Jackson in the postseason and let his arm be the story. And it's ridiculous because it's such a they have the ability to be so complimentary with what they do. Yeah. They just lose their identity in the postseason.
Yeah. You can tell they just outthink themselves. Like it, and it's, I don't know if it's that, or if it's like, well, we think we think the defense thinks we're going to run it. So we're going to, it's like, no, just lean. Like Lamar is a good passer.
Right.
But the run game should sell your story. And if they can't stop the run, then like, it's just, I just feel like they can't. I talked about it a couple weeks ago. I feel like the Ravens just can't get out of their own way in the playoffs. Like they just overthink the hell out of it. It's just like, Just keep it simple. Dance with the girl that brought you, and you're a unicorn of a run game with your 2 tight ends and Pat Ricard and Derrick Henry and Lamar and even like Justice Hill when he's healthy. Like all the things they can do. Yeah, don't deviate from that. And so week 1, I shouldn't say expecting because the Ravens are going to do whatever the Ravens are going to do. But yeah, I expect that run game to present a problem for the Bills, but they present a problem for the entire league. Yeah. It's more of how we continue going forward. And again, especially because they, I should backtrack this a bit because Tyreek Williams said the Bills told him if he was there at 30, he would be their pick. The Lions took him. The Bills took Hairston instead. So maybe they were opting for more of a run defense flavor on the interior. But at the end of the day, they just leaned harder into what they've already done.
Yeah, that's just such a crazy pivot. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
How do you go from we're picking Tyreek Williams at 30 to we're going TJ Sanders and I like TJ Sanders a ton. It's just
but it's a complete. And so my thought there on night 2, because I heard the Tyreek Williams thing. My thought when they traded up, even though this person I'm about to say doesn't really offer a lot from a pass rush upside, I thought they were going to go with like Alfred Collins.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, they want the big body run guy. But even though Tyreek Williams isn't a pass rushing savant, he's got significantly more juice and is better in that regard, in my estimation, than Alfred Collins. But yeah, to exactly your point, like it's Tyreek Williams here, and then it's TJ. Not that either one is bad, but they're just very much opposites in terms of play style and body type and skill set. And so how do you get? It was almost like they were like, you know what? We were going to make an exception for Tyreek. Screw it. Let's just do what we always do and opt for that. And again, that can work, but it was such a bigger problem than I think people realized last year because so many games, the game script forced teams out of that run element. And if that run element stays, it's a problem. Then you're keeping the ball away from Josh Allen and that offense and so on and so forth. Yeah, I'm there with you. Good times. Good times. I appreciate you calling me out for being too soft on the displacement piece.
I'll never forget what you said. You said, how are they going to mitigate
displacement?
Okay,
I have said blown off the ball, but that's my easiest way to kind of phrase it is mitigate displacement. Mainly because too, I think when people hear blown off the ball, they think north and south and you're getting driven back. And granted, that would happen to Bills, but it was also like gap to gap horizontally. So displacement, I just treat it as this way and that way, but fair. I appreciate you. Next question we got. The most under the radar storyline you've got for the Buffalo Bills heading into training camp.
Yeah, I don't think this should be under the radar, but I think it's become under the radar. It's Josh Palmer.
Oh, good answer. Yeah. So my hardest thing for answering this one was what I think is too under the radar based on rumblings and thoughts I hear and I see. Yeah, good call.
It's like the flavor right now is Elijah Moore at receiver,
yes.
And people are talking about Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman. It's like Josh Palmer was a priority early free agency signing with a very specific skill set that this team needed. The Bills face the highest percentage of man coverage in the NFL, which if Josh Allen's your quarterback, that should be very surprising to you.
Right.
And to me, that is a direct statement from the NFL saying, we don't think your outside receivers are very good. We don't think they can beat man coverage. And Josh Palmer was your most significant move to become better at beating man coverage. And so much of what what I believe this Bills offense wants to be is predicated on having players on the perimeter, receivers on the perimeter that can do enough to open up the middle of the field where your best pass catchers operate in Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid. And so the development of Keon Coleman and the onboarding of Josh Palmer is your ticket to better separation on the perimeter. I mean, metrically, Josh Palmer is one of the best separators in the league against man coverage, and the tape bears that out as well. And so it's how he onboards here and what that means, not only to have an individual piece for Josh Allen to throw the football to that I think has a pretty good all-around skill set, but what that means for the rest of the spacing of this passing offense to kind of take away some congestion from the middle of the field. Because if you want to attack the middle of the field, like that's the highest EPA place to attack a defense. It's where the best things happen. when other teams are playing the highest percentage of one high middle of the field close coverage, you can't attack that area like you want to. You need some more respect on the outside. Josh Palmer's your ticket to get in there, and I think it's an underrated storyline, not only for the reasons I outlined, but because I feel like it's such a forgotten part of this offseason narrative, and I don't think it should be.
I'm in lockstep with you. I think this is kind of like, yeah, like a I guess under the radar would fit it, but like a sneaky big one. You know, I remember talking a lot last year when they lost the back-to-back games to the Ravens and the Texans. Both of those teams came out and said, hey, we've got athletic and or good corners. We don't think you can beat them. So we're going to play single high and we're going to make you throw the ball. And we don't think you can to those guys. And it created a significant problem for the Bills. The Bills offense really, it opened up a bit with Amari Cooper, but they were kind of capped from like, if the ball's in the middle of the field, they were kind of capped from like the numbers and then to about like 15 yards. Like they could not operate in that space and throw the ball and get things out. Even their in-structure passing game for a lot of the year struggled. And a lot of their best passes came from off-script chunk plays created by Allen and, you know, his connection with different guys. I think the Palmer piece, it's such a good call from you because this for his, you know, and you've talked about it and you and I have talked about it together, like for as much as Josh Allen's the MVP, the identity of this team is running the football on the offensive side of the ball. But if you can't win on the outside in some fashion, teams are going to be like, you know what? You know, which is crazy to say what I'm about to say. Teams are going to say, you know what? We're just going to load the box and not let you run the ball and see if you got guys on the outside who can beat us. And if you don't, then you run into a scenario where now the run game starts to get muddied a little bit. And you have guys who can't win out there and everything just gets congested and tight in a not fun way and creates a negative domino effect for the rest of this offense. And again, things breathed a little bit and were alleviated a bit when they got Cooper, but they need somebody who can consistently win outside, especially from like the man coverage perspective and the underneath and intermediate. It's got to be somebody that has kind of, again, like Palmer, good release package, can win underneath, can win in that intermediate. Like I am very confident. I think I know what some of the metrics say for him deep. I think some of his verticality has gotten a bit overblown by the metrics, but when he does win vertical, and again, he's not slow, but when he does win vertical, it's because he's a good route runner. He operates with good deception and good pacing and body language. But I am just very confident in him being able to separate from 0 to like 13 yards on a variety of routes in the route tree. And I think that's so important because if teams try to stack that box and, hey, we're playing cover 1, or even if it's cover 3 and essentially presents like man coverage on the outside against in single receiver sets with, guys in their deep third, Palmer presents a guy that defenses might have to be like, oh, yeah, but Palmer can kind of cook our guy a little bit in this area. And, we can't really load the box against this. You might be able to just have that pass tag and Palmer's that guy available in a variety of ways. I think that's a good call because the one way to stop this Bills offense for me is load the box, stop the run. And again, as it's crazy as it sounds, force Josh Allen to throw the ball 40 or something times a game because I don't think this offense is built to live in that world with the weapons that they have and how they built this offense. And tied into that is the pass catchers and the receivers in the room they've created.
Yeah, I think it comes down to like last year's team was optimal. Like the Bills did such a good job of knowing how to optimize game scripts for what their roster is and is not. Others did a phenomenal job. Like it's not like the Bills roster was not as good as it was the year before or what I think it can be this year. And I think Josh Allen had to be the greatest quarterback in NFL history of taking care of the football, right? Lowest percentage of plays that resulted in a interception, fumble, or sack. The defense needed to lead the league in takeaways last year based on the construction and kind of what was missing. They're undermanned a bit on defense. And so they figured out their formula, their winning formula. I think it has the potential to be a more complete, more variety, more options, more on the table for how they can win games this year, which is good. I think it increases your margin for error, but I think that's kind of the silver lining, the hat tip, if you will, to the 24 Bills is I don't know that they were an elite team, but they knew how to maximize their possibilities to win games.
Absolutely. They saw the most man coverage last year and the most single high coverage last year. And I think a lot of that is a testament to teams not being scared of what they had on the outside, but also the respect for the run game and trying to put numbers in there. And you're definitely going that, it's up for debate right now how much teams fear the Bills receiving core, because we haven't seen this core, in this offense together yet with live bullets. But we know teams are going to respect the hell out of that run. And so we're going to see a lot of those same coverage structures. And if they got a guy on the outside or multiple who can win, how the hell do you stop this Bills offense with their ability to run the football, have Josh Allen, and then throw the football and have viable weapons on the outside? And that's a really scary piece. I also think Josh Allen needs to be better throwing the deep ball. He's been poor the last 2 years and has left a lot on the table. I think that's a big piece too. Not only winning on the outside and having guys that can beat man, but guys that can succeed vertically and make you pay and be able to take some shots and hit more of those shots that are going to be prevalent and available because teams want to stop your run game. Last question that we got. Who/what are you most eager to see during Bills training camp?
I've done well to not double dip with any of my answers. I'm going to break the streak right now because I want to give you one thing that's it's a little tongue in cheek, but it's not really. I think it's important. And then kind of like my real answer, my tongue in cheek, but not really comment is going to be who gets the punt return opportunities.
Okay.
I think that is I'm a big, I love projecting rosters and all that, but the piece of the puzzle that I struggle with the most right now is who is the punt returner. And I know that you would say it's Brandon Codrington. He was the punt returner last year. And to which I would say, yeah, he did a good job. I thought it was a great trade and I was very impressed with him. I just don't know that he brings enough value to this roster.
Can you burn a roster spot just for a punt return only guy? And for him, yep, great call.
Can't play corner. Can't play a lick of corner. And he doesn't play any other special teams. It's not like he's covering kicks and punts. So very, very, very limited overall profile. And this secondary situation is very difficult. If they're going to roster 10 or 11 to get it down to 10 or 11, if Brandon Codrington's one of those players, you're going to have to, you're probably not going to roster Dorian Strong or Jamarcus Ingram. I think that's the consequence there. And I wouldn't want that to happen.
No. And those are both I know we're talking bottom of the depth chart kind of guys. Those are both quality football players. I like what granted, we haven't seen Strong in the NFL yet, but his pedigree and his experience at Virginia Tech and his skill set and traits, I think projects well. And Ingram has inside-outside versatility. He showed some ability to ball a little bit when used in those dime packages earlier in the year with the injuries to Taron Johnson.
And I think Jamarcus Ingram was the Bills' best special teams player last year.
Oh, good call.
For sure, in my opinion, covering kicks and punts. And so the challenge that I have here is I look at this receiver core, and I think most people would say they're going to roster 5, and those players are Coleman, Shakir, Palmer, Moore, and Samuel. Problem with that compilation of 5 receivers is none of them help you on special teams. So can Elijah Moore be the punt returner? I know he's only had 2 punt returns in the NFL, but he had 78 in college. That does include fair catches. And so he doesn't have that many returns, but he has that many fielded punts. So he did very well in terms of taking care of the football. I think that's important. I think the Bills need to find some special teams contributions from receivers, and I think that's the way to do it. And then that gets the other piece of that's important is that gets Codrington off your roster, and that does make room for an Ingram, a Dane Jackson, a Dorian Strong, who you do think can help you cover kicks and punts, which is an important part of this roster puzzle. If it's not Elijah Moore or Brandon Codrington, then who? Is it
Shakir?
He was in the postseason last year.
Yeah.
Is that part of
I like it. I like him. Anytime I can get the ball in Khalil Shakir's hands more, I'm a fan of it. But also, I think he's going to be important to the no disrespect to special teams. I think he's going to be important to the actual function of the regular offense.
I agree, but he's not a high volume snap. He doesn't play in 12 personnel.
Yeah. So
is that how you kind of make up some missing contributions?
Yeah. Get him some extra touches.
Chris Tabor, the Bills' new special teams coordinator, he said he's never had so many returners. Who are they?
Yeah, right.
Who are these people? We're going to find out real soon here, but I'm eager, right? That's the question. What are you eager to see? Who are these returners? And who realistically can do this? And can Codrington get bumped off this roster? I think I don't not like Brandon Codrington. I just feel like he doesn't bring enough value to roster him based on the competition that exists across this team. So that was my sort of answer. It really is my answer. But the other thing that I wanted to bring up here is like, and shout out to us. We haven't talked about James Cook yet, and I'm going to kind of do that right now. But it's really not so much the contract piece or if he's going to hold in or whatever. But the Bills have navigated all but 3 days of this offseason without James Cook. Right? He's not been around. So that's put Ray Davis and Ty Johnson in elevated roles. And the Bills' rushing offense, especially last year, was optimized for James Cook, which is it should be. It should be. The way that they pull their tackles, the way that they set up mid zone and cutback zone, and how they will attack the edges. Like it's very much what does James Cook do well, and how do we optimize that? And that's what any good team should do.
Yeah. Which
flies in the face of what is optimized for Ray Davis. Very, 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 very different runners. How is this? What clues do we get during camp for how this run scheme is optimized? Does it give us some indicators about how much more they want Ray Davis to play and maybe less James Cook, or if will we see enough where it's like, go ahead and trade him? I want to see what new layers, because I mean, I don't have any numbers on this. Maybe you do, but I don't think they ran as much dart last year as they did the year before, the tackle wrap play.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have the hard numbers on it, but no, last year was a lot of mid zone, lot. Like I think mid zone ate into all the tackle pull stuff.
Yeah.
And Duo's been a healthy one for the past couple of years, but yeah, absolutely. Mid zone overtook the tackle pull stuff, both in terms of dart and tackle long trap. Both of those went down.
So what's coming? Cromer is got a huge role in the run scheme. What's he been thinking about for the last 6 months? I want to find out, and we're gonna get some. I'm eager to find out. So, run scheme optimization and what clues that gives us about the direction of the backfield, and then who the heck are these punt returners, man?
Oh, I like those. I like those ones to watch for. And I even throw the kick return piece. I think is interesting. Although I mean, I don't know, they changed the rules, but it's still a ton of touchbacks still. So I feel like it almost like you could put Alec Anderson back.
You heard Chris Tabor said he's expecting, I think the Bills had 36 kick returns last year. He said he was thinking like north of 75. It's a huge bump.
Wow, I did not hear that. That is
he said it out loud. Yeah, he said it out loud. He said that the touchback is now the 30 or whatever it is, 35.
Yeah.
It's different. They think that they're going to get more returns.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kick return. Which is not the same as punt return.
No, yeah, and not at all. They're a much different world. As a person who returned kicks and punts, they're surprisingly different. Well, yeah, good call. That's a sneaky one. That could have been also under the radar too.
Yeah, I'll be dialed in on that. And now that you're aware of that, you're going to be probably to camp a little bit before me. I'm going to need this information from you.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm going to be just like locked now. I'm going to be, instead of like compiling stuff, I need to see like who, especially too, because normally it's like, okay, they have like 3 to 4, 5 or 5 guys at most like return, but now I'm like, do they have a whole cavalcade of dudes back there just like for as punt options, or who really kind of separates? Yeah, I forgot who I was talking about this with earlier this offseason, but yeah, I said the same thing. Like, no disrespect to Brandon Codrington, and I don't mean this verbiage to be that harsh, but I don't want to burn a spot on him as a returner if that means I lose Jamarcus Ingram or I lose Dorian Strong or one of the other safeties, or if Jordan Hancock plays well, like that type of versatility that he has as a safety and nickel, or even like Cam Lewis, if he's somehow like on the shot, like I don't want to lose any of those potential guys who play actual snaps on defense and offer some positional flex between the roles that they can play defensively and then special teams. It's tough for me to burn that on a silo punt return only essentially guy, maybe kick return piece. But yeah, knowing that he doesn't really offer anything else, that's a good one.
Oh, let me know who those gunners are. Who's getting those first gunner reps too?
I shall. I forget, what was it last year you asked me on? I think last year was the offensive line rotations. Yeah. For the second team, they asked me.
I want to see how much Grable gets at guard this year too.
This is funny. You can't keep them all, Anthony. They're not Pokemon. Yeah, Grable. Oh, I forgot. There's also too. I was talking about this with someone else, and they were like, "Oh, Grable is probably an easy cut candidate." I was like, "Easy cut candidate." I was like,
No.
"He played so well in the
Oh,
preseason last
I
year."
thought I
Like,
was watching Deion Dawkins.
dude, I was gonna say I was not ready for Grable to pull out that snatch trap
He was
all
killing
throughout the
dudes.
preseason and chopping dudes down. I was like,
Bro,
"Oh, look
I
at
got
this!"
real excited about Tyler Grable, especially like when you contrast the player I watch at UCF. I'm like, I don't think this guy
Right.
can
That's
go,
what I was
man.
thinking. I was like, okay, here's the dude with some athleticism and length. We'll see what he can be. And then I'm like, look at the technique throughout each preseason. And he significantly improved preseason 1 to 2 to 3. And by preseason week 3, I was like,
He won the swing tackle job. He
I
beat
thought
out
it was good.
Vandermark.
Yeah.
He did it.
He's very real. Very real. Yeah. If you can
I
kick
think
in the
he's
guard a little
very
bit.
real as a possible successor to David Edwards at left guard. Very real.
Oh,
They have the exact same measurables. Exact same.
And David Edwards is a UFA next season. Interesting. Yeah, I am not sneaky concerned, but with McGovern and Edwards, like, are we talking about both of them being in a Bills uniform next year, or is it SVPG time and Tylen Grable, or is it Alec Anderson moving into, one of those spots? Like, what does that look like? That's not necessarily a camp. That's one of like my underlying things for this season and going into next. I'm very much if it's not broken, don't fix it. And this offensive line is very much not broken. So I don't want anything to change.
Well, I hear you, but I mean, let's be realistic. McGovern's going to be north of 14 million a season.
Yeah.
Osiris Torrance. Who's this? Some guard just got paid a stupid amount of money. Who was it? Trey Smith.
Oh yeah. The
crazy
most,
big money.
Yeah. The most ever. Yeah.
Right. Like Osiris Torrance is potentially going to be like north of $15 million a year.
Yeah, even if I was even thinking too of who the Panthers paid last offseason and started
Robert
really
Hunt.
making. Yes, thank you.
$20 million a year guard.
The guard market is becoming like the tackle market years
Huge.
ago, and people are just paying interior offensive linemen left and right.
And David Edwards he's a serviceable starting guard in the league. That's like $7-8 million a year.
Yeah.
This interior three, it's probably the last year of it.
Oh,
I don't think you can keep all three. I don't think you can do it.
No, I think if you keep Edwards and McGovern, that means Torrance is likely gone. And then I think if you lose McGovern and Edwards, you're likely keeping Torrance. Because even if Torrance continues to improve, but his size and what he can do from a people moving standpoint, where the league is headed towards the type of schemes and philosophy on the offensive side of the ball, a lot of teams are going to see him and just want to mash the hell out of teams. I can see somebody paying him a good chunk.
I think you look at 4 players. It's Connor McGovern, Osiris Torrance, James Cook, who I think are all looking for $15 million a year or more, and then David Edwards. And I think you can only keep 2.
That's fair. Yeah.
The easiest one to say is, well, I really like whether it's Alec Anderson or Sed Van Pran Granger or Tylen Grable. It's like, okay, we got an answer at left guard, and now you get to pick one of, or you get to pick 2 of McGovern, Torrance, and Cook.
Yeah. And then, what I think it also helps too in this, as somebody said it in the comments there, Music Blogger 87 said Cromer may be the best offensive line coach in the NFL. So much of it that gives me that reduces my trepidation here is being like, well, you know what? There's so many people say it now, like in Cromer we trust. I'm okay, with him getting guys ready and coached up, and we go from there.
Let's just hope Aaron Cromer wants to coach the Bills offensive line forever.
Right. I was gonna say I need a Dante Scarnecchia type of scenario where he's just there for forever and doesn't go somewhere else.
I don't know if that's what he's gonna do or not. So
it's also scary.
Yeah.
Also scary.
The day's coming.
I know. Oh, terrifying. I am. So we talked offline a little bit, and then we talked for about 15 minutes about blueberries and the movie Casino and Miss Rachel and some farm stuff. We got a bit off track. And even with all of that, we've only been show running as of right now an hour and 4 minutes. I came very close to getting you out right on time like I wanted to. So I'm very proud.
It's on me, dude. You don't have to wear that. That's on me. I brought up the blueberry thing, which then
I love that conversation part. That was tremendous. 2, I have no problem keeping you forever. We could go until midnight. I don't care at all. I care for you. I don't care for myself. I would selfishly keep you here for forever. But I want to be cognizant of your time. So I am proud that we got you close. For those still watching, I'm going to keep trudging on. The questions that Joe answered, I'm going to give mine and some details and some stat pieces that I saved. I wanted to make sure we got Joe out on time. just in case people don't know, Joe, who you are and where they can find you, what you do, and all that stuff, the flow is yours. Well, technically, the flow and the floor can be yours right now.
Wow.
But yeah, there you go. The mic is yours. The floor is yours. The flow is yours. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, where they can find you, and all that stuff.
I thought you were going to start rapping there, dude. He's
dropping
bars,
I'm a poet and I don't even know it, but I can show it.
Was that in your back pocket, or did you just do that?
No, that's a phrase from that I've known for 15 years. I don't remember where it's from, but
okay. That's I'm a pop culture. I'm watching Miss Rachel. I already told you. I watch football and Miss Rachel. That's what's going on.
Rachel. If it's not on Miss Rachel or the NFL or college football,
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't have a clue. Not a clue. Joe Marino, host of Locked On Bills. I think that's the most important thing for you to know. At the Joe Marino on X, a lot of content all the time, and appreciate you having me on. Appreciate Cover One and everything that you guys do over here. It's been a good relationship, and enjoying your content, and excited to follow along this season.
Thank you for joining me again. It was awesome to have you on this episode again. Like I mentioned in the intro, and I mentioned on Twitter, I had you on for this episode last year at this time. So I like this kind of mini tradition we've created. In addition to I have you on this show throughout the entirety of the year at different points, and you have me on Locked On. So I appreciate the working relationship that we have, and you as a person and you as a football analyst and everything that you do. And again, I know how precious and valuable your time is with all that you do, both on and off the field. So I appreciate you taking the time to join me tonight. And yeah, you crushed it. Thank you so much. I appreciate the hell out of you.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you. Go Bills.
Go Bills. Have a good night. Mr. Joe Marino, tremendous guest. Before I get into my answers, I want to go back and grab that super chat from Jason. Jason, thank you. Wow, this is a big one. It almost covered my entire face. One, Jason, thank you very much for being here. Two, thank you so much for the super chat. Three, let's get to this actual super chat. Jason says, do you think there truly is a way to attack an offense besides through the defensive line? It feels like McDermott wants solid/smart play everywhere, but is realizing he might need to be a little more quote unquote wild on the defensive line, for lack of a better word. I think for this question, I think so much of it is kind of tied to the old debate that a lot of people have had, coverage or pass rush, or coverage or defensive line. How do you build your defense? And I don't think there's necessarily a right answer. You can have a solid D line and it affords you luxuries on the back end. You can have a very solid back end, and that affords you different pieces on the D line. What I think is most important about your question here, Jason, and this is tied into some of the points actually that I have that we're going to speak about in a bit. I do think my biggest issue with the Bills defense over the years is Sean McDermott, and you alluded to it here, saying it feels like, he needs to be a little more wild on the defensive line. Sean McDermott's defense, since he was in Carolina, has very much just been relying on the front four to win as rushers and win against the run, and that allowing the back seven to play coverage. So that way you always have the numbers advantage in coverage, and you can do a variety of things. The issue with that is you need to have horses up front to play that kind of football. And the Bills just, unfortunately, have not had that level of horse across their defensive line. If you look at the defensive lines that McDermott had in Carolina, I mean, they had some of the best players at their positions on those defensive lines. And then even, juxtaposing it with a team like the Eagles this past year, and everybody's going to try and replicate that. Their defensive line was 7, 8 guys deep, quality guys on their defensive line. It's hard to just win with your front four if you don't have studs. Because if you don't have studs, then you need to have 6 or 7 guys that are all a B to a B+. And that's hard in and of itself, let alone not having studs or even getting them. So I do think with, kind of being more wild this year, I do think they need more, mixing in some more odd fronts, some more, run stunts, pass stunts, some games up front, more 5-man pressures, more simulateds, more creepers. I think you need more manufactured attacks and games up front. Now, the issue with that is, I mentioned it a little earlier with Joe, it's a bit of a risk reward. If you call the wrong stunt at the wrong time, all of a sudden, there's alleys to run through between, your guard and center or the guard and tackle or whatever. So, there is a risk reward element to it. But I do think they just have to play more games and a more variety, more varied attack, I should say. And this is all part two. This is kind of my own personal philosophy. Like the defenses I really gravitate towards are more odd front type of defenses that have more hybrid type of players. Like I think it's fine to have a traditional 4 down, defensive line and static type of front, but I like having defenses where, it's 3 down, but it's kind of 4 down. And you've got a guy on the edge who can drop into coverage and who could also rush a little bit. And you've got this mix of body types and skill sets, which allow you to play a mix of fronts, which then tie into the kind of mystery of how you can attack, where you can attack, and vary it based on matchup and based on opponent. But this is a really great question, and I really appreciate the super chat. That was great. Oh, and you got some follow-ups. Jason, you said, it feels like McDermott has always wanted solid, and that wins you a ton of games, but it hasn't been enough when we needed people in positions to be free enough to just make a play. I also think that's true. Like, they've had guys that have, again, been solid. I think they've lacked the high-end talent. And that's part of what I alluded to with like not having the horses up front. They haven't had like bucket getters up front, dudes where you just want to clear everything out, play iso ball, and let somebody win one-on-one. Von Miller was supposed to be that guy, and he was until he got hurt. Ed Oliver is that guy at times, but not always. Sometimes it happens a lot. Sometimes it happens a little bit. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. And I think that's been their biggest thing. Like, they've built this team out of having a strong front four, and they haven't had a strong enough front four. And so then you have to combat that schematically, and it's been a bit rocky. Jason, you also said, but it seems like his approach is to do it to the D-line. Absolutely. I think McDermott and Bean have both talked about and used various phrases in terms of like build the defense through the defensive line out. The defensive line is the engine. When Eric and I had Dean Marlowe on the film room a couple years ago, he said the same thing. Like, McDermott believes in building the defense from the defensive line out. The defensive line is the engine. They both believe that it starts up front, which again is what makes it so frustrating that they don't have horses up front that you can continuously rely on, because they do believe that the defense starts from the defensive line and builds out from there. The defensive line is the engine, whatever verbiage you want to use. But it still feels like year after year, we're like, man, they really need help at defensive tackle. Man, they really need help at edge. It's a larger frustration point. Yeah, it's tough. Tough. And this is also a good point from Connor, who says, but what can a defensive line do when the other team is getting the ball out in under 2 seconds and the secondary looks lethargic and gets cut up on crossing routes? That's where we get into the marriage of coverage and pass rush. That's where it comes to playing more man coverage on the back end, restricting passing windows, playing more press or playing more press jam to disrupt timing, get in the kitchen of guys and throw off, again, that spatial awareness, the spatial breathability that receivers or pass catching options have. Yeah, that starts to stack, and it's a much larger schematic conversation that we've talked about a bit on the show throughout this offseason. That's a very good point. I appreciate you, Jason, of course. Yeah, of course, anytime. I mean, anytime someone throws a super chat up, I'm always going to respond anytime. And especially, you're here all the time watching. I appreciate the hell out of you being a consistent supporter of mine and the show. So yeah, anytime. I appreciate you very much for being here and for the super chat. And that was a good question. So thank you very much for that. So a couple pieces. Again, I just want to answer some of these questions. I didn't want to make this show solely on Joe, and I'm just asking him stuff. And then I'm like, all right, everyone, good night. So I want to give a couple of my answers here. My answer for the question that I need answered the most coming out of training camp. Again, I think a lot of this answer the biggest one for me is the run defense piece that I talked about a bit with Joe, but I don't think that'll be answered until we're in season. So the biggest question that I need answered the most coming out of training camp is, can Joey Bosa be edge one? And I asked that from the perspective of, the Bills needing a guy off the edge who can get them a bucket as a pass rush, who can win one-on-one, who's a consistent threat and a problem up front. Because if Joey Bosa can't be the edge one as a pass rusher, who can? Tied into this a bit is what kind of jump Greg Rousseau makes and what he looks like as a pass rusher. There is a chance that if Joey Bosa is healthy and if Greg Rousseau makes another jump like he has every year he's been in the league, the Bills could have 2 edge ones against the pass. They could have Joey Bosa and Greg Rousseau both be a terror off the edge. There's also a chance that if Joey Bosa is hurt and Greg Rousseau doesn't make another jump as a pass rusher, the Bills could have no edge one from a pass rush perspective, and they would have to cobble it together in the aggregate like they have in previous years. That is a very worrisome thing for me. That is a very scary thing for me. I've talked about it a bunch. I think as much as I love Rousseau, I think he's more of a Batman than he is a Robin as a pass rusher right now. And the best chance to get yourself a Batman is for Joey Bosa to be healthy. If not, your best chance is Greg Rousseau taking a jump and going from Robin to Batman. If not, I don't think you're going to have a Batman. And then you have to have a bunch of Robins and Nightwings and stuff like that. And that's a whole nother conversation. Can AJ Epinesa be that? Can Landon Jackson be that? Can Javon Solomon can be that? Can Javon Solomon be that? Can Michael Hoyt be that? Do they want to keep him at edge? You know, how much does he even factor into the true edge grouping, or do they use him in that spinner role, which is another point I'm going to bring up here. So that's a big one for me. And I think that is one we can get answered coming out of camp. Like, we can watch one-on-ones and the trench work and see, one, if Bosa's even practicing, two, if he is, how much is he causing problems for the guys that are blocking him, especially considering he's going to have time going up against two really good tackles in Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. And so it's kind of, you know, metal on metal, good on good. And we're going to be able to see, you know, kind of what we get from that. So again, the top one for me here is the run defense. I think that's going to be answered more in season. So for the question I need to answer the most coming out of camp is, you know, essentially, can Joey Bosa be edge one? And if not, can Greg Rousseau be that? And I don't mean edge one like, oh, the top guy on the depth chart. I mean a true edge one as a pass rusher. Like a guy, I think Groot is an edge one against the run all day, every day. He's one of the best run defenders in all of football, not just edges or defensive linemen, one of the best run defenders in all of football. I don't think he's there yet as a pass rusher. There's a chance he can be. Again, he's made jumps every single year. And that's why if he makes that jump and Bosa stays healthy, you could have two horses coming off the edge. And that's extremely, extremely exciting. K. Morey says, our best chance of trading for Trey Hendrickson. I like that. Paul says, what nose tackle targets might the Bills have? Or zero tech. I got to be honest, I don't think really anybody. I think they want more inside rush penetration guys. I think Tyleik Williams was either a unicorn or a kind of flash in the pan. I think they're opting for more inside rush and more penetration. I don't really think they have nose tackle targets. Maybe if the line falls apart and they realize we got to pivot, but yeah, sadly, I don't think they have any. I think they are, again, this could work. I think they're content with just one gapping, penetrating upfield type of guys that skew more towards pass rush than they do, you know, plugging and displacement mitigation, as I said earlier. K. Morey said the question is punter. RJ says, my biggest question is the defensive line and the wide receiver room. Both have a ton of new guys and both are unproven. Yeah. Micah says, Bosa stays hurt, we will be lucky to get 10 games out of him. Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. Claude says, if Joey Bosa's edge one from January to February, I'm happy. Hell yeah. All Paul says, I got to go. Go Bills. Thanks for the show. Enjoy your night, Paul. I appreciate you stopping in. James says, do you think Jackson as a rookie with a high motor makes a difference? I think he'll need to, because Bosa is going to get hurt a bunch and Michael Hoyt is out for the first 6 games. So I think he's going to have to make a difference. I'm still not sold on him because he's high cut and his play style. I think he can be a fine rotational guy. I don't think he's ever going to be a high end player, but I think he can be a fine like edge 3, maybe edge 2. I think they're going to need him to make a difference. And I think he'll be fine, again, in a rotational role. Run stopping kind of guy, play violent, play through guys, and kind of set a, you know, physical tone and edge on the outside. We'll see what we get from a pass rush perspective and just how much, you know, him being high cut and not being very flexible and mobile from his lower body, how much that hinders him. So we'll see. All right, let us see the next one. I have biggest concern I have going into camp. There's a variety of answers I could have had for this one. I like Joe's as well. I'm going to go with one that I think isn't being kind of, this also could have been my under the radar piece, but I want to know how they fill the Mac Hollins run blocking role. Mac Hollins was 11th amongst all wide receivers in run blocking snaps last year, and he led all non-offensive linemen Buffalo Bills in run blocking snaps. So he was involved from both a volume / quantity perspective in the run game, and he was also involved and very good from a quality perspective in terms of his execution and being assignment sound. He was also good blocking on wide receiver screens and bubbles and pass tags and all that kind of stuff. I think it's possible to replace him. I'm just concerned how and what that means schematically. Is he replaced by an individual like Keon Coleman or Dalton Kincaid? Or is it more of a personnel replacement like more 13 or more Jumbo or 21 and we see more Reggie Gilliam? Or do they replace him schematically with formation or alignment? Whatever it is, or however they replace him, I should say, it brings its own set of advantages and disadvantages. And again, that's not necessarily bad, but as a person who is very much a proponent of if it's not broken, don't fix it, I would rather be fixated on tweaking and building upon last year's offense instead of, replacing. And I do think you're going to have to replace, that Mac Hollins role. Again, it's not doom and gloom, but I do think it's significant. And then you combine that with some of the pass upside that he brought. I do think it's not necessarily the easiest fix, but I do think it is one that worst case scenario they can cobble together. I just kind of want to see how and why they do it. Position group I'll be watching the most. Talked about this earlier. The safeties. Joe and I talked about this. I'm just concerned how Bishop and Rapp fit together. If Bishop and Rapp are the starters, does Derek Forrest make a push? Do the Bills just say, you know what, we're not impressed with Bishop or Forrest, so it's going to be Hamlin and Rapp again? Yeah, I think safety is one for me. Most under the radar storyline heading into camp for me, what they do schematically with Michael Hoyt. Do they use him in that spinner role like the Rams did, or is he more of a traditional edge in terms of just being like their traditional 4 down, 1 gapping front, and he's just in the edge rotation on the outside? Also, do they have anyone else if they do use him as that kind of spinner? And when I say spinner, I've talked about on the show, but for those who don't know, that spinner role meaning like he could be on the edge, he could be over the center, he could be in the A gap, he could be over a guard or the B gap, he could be off ball, he could be dropping into coverage. Like you don't know what he's going to do. If they have that role for Hoyt, which is what I think they brought him here for, which would be nice, but also interesting because they haven't had a guy like that in a very long time. The closest guy they had to that was Lorenzo Alexander years ago. If that is the role for Hoyt, do they have anyone else in that role? With him being out for 6 games, does that role disappear until he's active? Or do they try and plug someone else into that role because they find value in the role itself in addition to having value in Hoyt? Do they take someone else and use them in that spinner role or try and cobble it together in different forms and fashions? Or do we see nothing like it and it's completely not a thing until Hoyt suits up and then we see that? So I think what they do with him schematically as an individual for Hoyt himself, but also does anybody else, kind of fall into that role or that type of usage? Oh, we got super chat from Daily Redwood. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for the super chat. Deli Redwood says, just saw Codrington at Target. I just joined the stream, but was thinking already about what his fate might be. Tight roster this year, especially for a very narrow skill set like his. Thoughts? What's funny, and not even to plug this, Joe Marino and I, who was my guest earlier on the show, at about the 50-minute mark, roughly, we talked about Brandon Codrington a lot. Joe had Brandon Codrington and the punt returner situation in general as one of his most eager things to see during camp. So we talked about that a ton. So I don't want to cop out and be like, oh, just go back and watch that. But go back and watch that piece. I will say, you're pretty close to spot on to what we said. Tight roster this year, especially for a very narrow skill set like his. Thoughts? Yeah, I just don't know if you can commit or burn a roster spot for a guy who just gives you kick return and punt return snaps. Like he doesn't do anything else from a special teams perspective, doesn't do anything else from a defense or like an actual corner perspective. So are you cutting somebody for someone who's just in that one siloed role, or can you cobble it together with someone else and then make a roster spot for someone who gives you more positional flexibility or roster flexibility across multiple spots? That's a very good question. Bearded Johnson says, super late, but I'll watch The Green Mile over Casino any day. Carry on. I think they're 2 completely different movies. That's fair, but I'm taking Casino. Yeah, Beth says, I'm still concerned with our safeties. I don't know that I'm there with the room yet. I agree. I am also not there yet. I'm nervous. I like this comment. I went back from Nick. Nick says, I'm going to need Bishop to knight the competition and make all the right moves in camp. No pun intended. Oh, I like it. James saying, is that chess piecery? And Nick saying, yes, it is. Yeah, I forget when I said chess piecery. I think I said it on the live show at MafiaCon with Aaron on Saturday, I think. But I appreciate you, Deli. Yeah, really good. This is good from James. James says, was Codrington returning something at Target? Well done. That was very good. I kind of don't want to do anything. I wish I want to just end the stream right now. There's nowhere to go but down. That was hilarious. Well done, James. Well done. That was super funny. It was Codrington returning something at Target. That was really good. Oh, well done. But yeah, Deli, really good question. Especially considering, again, like Codrington only does returner duties. That's it. You're not getting, oh yeah, he's corner 4, or he's the backup nickel, or he plays all the, he plays punt coverage and kick coverage. He's also a gunner or something like else. No, it's just returner duties. So are you, and what Joe and I talked about a bunch was like, are you, keeping him sacrifices someone like a Dorian Strong or a Jamarcus Ingram or maybe Cam Lewis or Jordan Hancock, someone like that who may offer you more meaningful reps in another area. But really good question. I appreciate you being willing to go back and check that out. Good call. So yeah, Hoyt was my most under the radar storyline. And then who or what I'm most eager to see during camp, it's the coverage and the front structures. Joe and I talked about it a bit, with Hairston and some of the other defensive line stuff, but do we see more man coverage? What type of coverages are we getting and in what capacity? How creative are they being in their safety spins and their coverage disguises? Are they getting more creative in their coverages on the back end? Tying into this a bit, what's the rotation at safety and the rotation at corner? Who's, CB 2 and 3 and 4? Same thing with safety 2 and 3 and 4. Talking about just the front aspect. Do we see more simulateds? Do we see more creepers? Do we see more 5-man rushes? For those who don't know, simulated pressures and creeper pressures are 4-man rushes, but from a non-traditional sense. They're called, they're referred to as safe pressures. And all it essentially is you're taking a non-traditional rusher and rushing them and taking a non-traditional coverage player or a traditional rusher and dropping them. So essentially it's a 4-man rush. Easiest way to think of it, it's a 4-man rush, but you drop Greg Rousseau into coverage and you rush Terrell Bernard. So you're taking a non-traditional rusher and a linebacker, sending him on the rush, then taking a traditional rusher in Rousseau and dropping him into coverage. You're still only rushing 4. You're still dropping 7 into coverage, but gives you the opportunity to confuse protections, use their rules against them, manipulate things a bit, and still have numbers in coverage, albeit having a non-traditional coverage person in coverage. The difference between a simulated pressure and a creeper pressure: simulated pressure shows pressure before the snap. A creeper pressure does not. Everybody's kind of just lined up off ball. You're thinking, oh, okay, they only have 4 down. That's it. And then on the snap, a linebacker rushes, or, your slot corner rushes, and they drop a defensive end or a defensive tackle or something like that. So do we see more of that? Do we see more 5-man rushes? Ryan Nielsen's teams the past several years, going back to his time with the Saints and then the Falcons and then the Jags last year, have always been a team towards the top of the league in 5-man rush rate in terms of usage. Do we see more 5-man rushes from the Bills this year? Do we see more stunts? Do we see more games? Do we see more blitzes? Or is it more of kind of like what Jason asked earlier? Do we see more of, hey, this is what we are: 4 down, 1 gapping, penetrating, get upfield? Is it more of the same, or do we start to see more tweaks and changes and rotation pieces? Question here: how do Sims compare to Rex's old zone blitz? Oh, good call, or good question, I should say. Zone blitzes are necessary. Zone blitzes are more from a traditional blitz sense. You're bringing 5 or more. A simulated pressure is you're only rushing 4. So it's similar from the perspective of you're trying, you can create free runners or manipulate pass protection rules, or get offenses to keep in extra blockers that they don't actually need. You can make them think like, hey, we're going to send this guy and that guy, and the offense will go, okay, then we got to keep in a tight end and running back, but then they actually don't need to. So you can manipulate protections and rules and have the opportunity to potentially create free runners or create like one-on-one matchups that you want. So that's similar in that regard. But overall, the zone blitz piece was more, you're actually blitzing. You're bringing 5 or more guys, not just rushing 4 and dropping, a defensive lineman and bringing a non-traditional rusher. It's more of an actual blitz. You're bringing 5 or more guys. But the potential philosophy of being kind of attack-minded is somewhat there, but with a simulated, it's more, a safe pressure because you're still only rushing 4 and dropping 7 into coverage. There's more risk reward because that zone blitz, you're vacating more coverage space and you're usually bringing more bodies to rush, so you have less guys in coverage. I hope that answered your question. That was a really good question. I really like that. Really appreciate that. You know what else is a really good question? What is the best pizza in Buffalo, New York? And the answer is One Pie Pizza. I'm going to scroll all the way back to the beginning of this episode because RJ said that he had One Pie Pizza a couple of days ago, and he said the Cover One Josh Allen Goat Pizza was great. One Pie Pizza, the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. I don't say that because they sponsor the show. They sponsor the show because I think they are the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. And a really cool thing, because we have this partnership with them, maybe about a year and a half into our partnership, they named a pizza after us in conjunction with Josh Allen. It's called the Cover One Josh Allen Goat. One, because, play on words of Josh Allen being the GOAT, but also because there's goat cheese on the pizza. I don't even want to get into the specifics of what's in it. It is absolutely delicious. Everything they make is delicious. They're, just getting a regular pie or their homemade blue cheese. Their menu is tremendous. That menu can be found in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. I mentioned the catering division in the intro. Their catering division is amazing. All the different kind of mac and cheeses and this coconut rice chicken dish that they had, which was amazing. I've had them cater multiple events this summer and last year as well, and it was delicious. They also do a breakfast pizza. Everything that One Pie Pizza does is tremendous. So I wanted to bring up this comment from RJ. One, I appreciate you being here, RJ, and watching the show like you always do and commenting. But two, dropping this that you had yourself some One Pie Pizza. Glad you enjoyed it. And I'm glad you got the Cover One Josh Allen Goat. Yeah, that's tremendous. So if you are in the Buffalo area, whether you live here, whether you're visiting here, anything and everything, get yourself some One Pie Pizza. If you need an event that's catered, whatever you're doing, check out Elevated Catering of Buffalo. That link and online menu can also be found in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. Yeah, they're really good people making really good food. I talk about all the time, all the different initiatives and drives that they have for the city of Buffalo and the community at large. Toys for Tots, partnering with Roswell, the SPCA, the Alzheimer's Foundation. They just give back in a lot of ways, aside from just providing us with tremendous food. They do a lot of good for the community at large. So get yourself some One Pie Pizza, do some good for your taste buds and the community while you're at it. And tell them that Disguise Coverage and Cover One. RJ says the goat cheese pizza reminds me of the pizza I had in Sicily. It's legitimately great, and I'm not being paid anything to say that. If you ever needed an endorsement, that's another tremendous one. A+, RJ. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Well done on that, RJ. King P says, do you think our receivers can get open, and will we be able to stop the run and get off the field on third downs? All of those are questions. I think Palmer will be a help in terms of guys getting open. I think we're only going to be able to stop the run with numbers or with game script, like I talked about earlier with Joe. I think run defense is still going to be an issue with just winning one-on-one or mitigating displacement. I think they're only going to be able to stop the run by gapping out, run blitzing, and having numbers in the box. I think that's going to be a problem. Getting off the field on third downs, big question. Talked about that last week in the film room, talked about it a bunch on Twitter. They were horrible on third downs overall, and especially on third and long, which is 7 or more yards. I think they have to change some coverage pieces. I think they have to marry coverage with their front and their rush game better. And be more varied in their attack on the front end and on the back end. Play some more man, play some more press, restrict some passing windows and some airspace, disrupt some timing, allow the guys to get up front and hunt a little bit, but also those guys still need to win. I think that's a big question. So I think do you think our receivers can get open? I'm hopeful, but I think yes. I don't think it's going to be a strength, but I think they'll be able to get the job done. Will we be able to stop the run? Not unless they gap out and run blitz and stack the box. I think that's going to be problematic. Or use game script to make teams go away from the run and then get off the field on third downs. Big question mark. Very fair. Good question. David says, my nephew is going to UB this fall, and I told him to go to One Pie. Yes. Good answer, David. Love that. And then David says, how much of third down defense issues with Babbage being a first-year coordinator? We'll know, not to cop out for an answer, we'll know more this year. If we see more of the struggles that we did last year, then it's, kind of symptomatic of the defense or the philosophy and the schematics. If we see a change, then we know, he grew a little bit and adjusted a bit. I do think, him being a first-year coordinator was part of it, but also he's got guys on that staff and in that building who should have had the capacity to rein things in a little bit as needed, considering how bad they were, and they didn't. So it's a bit of a mixture. But very good question. If you have not already, I'm throwing up the banner that says toodles, you folks, because we're going to start to say goodbye here and wind down. If you have not already, please, 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 thank you, drop a like on this video here on YouTube. Likes are the lifeblood of these streams, and they mean a lot. It may seem small, but a like goes a long way towards helping myself and the entire team to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. So if you have not already, please drop a like on this video here on YouTube. If you're listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, that's cool too. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage. Turn on notifications for the Disguise Coverage playlist here on YouTube. Check out all of the content across the entirety of the Cover One channel. And yeah, hope you folks enjoyed this episode. If there's anything I didn't get to, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, anything like that, get at me on Twitter at @pro__ant. That's pro 2 underscores ANT. Get at me on Blue Sky at ProAnt. No underscores there, just PROANT. Also, I will be going to training camp tomorrow and Thursday. So follow me on Twitter and on Blue Sky for anything and everything training camp you want. I'm going to be doing what I did last year, which is talking a lot about scheme and structure and how guys are being used and player evaluation, what we're seeing, coverage, a lot of what I talked about tonight, coverage structures, front structures, usage, snap rates, alignments and formation and how guys are being used, who's doing what, who looks good, who doesn't, who's performing in what capacity. Yeah, so that was a really fun time last year. I hope folks can join me for that again this year as I head out to camp. No jinx, fingers crossed, tomorrow and Thursday and potentially Sunday. And yeah, that'll do it for us, I think, here. Adding that threw me out of the normal rhythm of my outro. So if I'm forgetting anything or anyone, I apologize. Thank you very much to Joe Marino for joining me on this episode. He was awesome as always. Thank you very much to Jason and Deli Redwood for your super chats and for being here. Thank you to everyone who tuned in live on this episode. I know we're starting to move forward towards thank you for that, David. David saying, watch out in the 490, dude. There's construction. Thank you very much for that. That is actually sincerely and tremendously helpful. I'll leave a little bit earlier tomorrow and make sure I'm ship shape with that. Thank you to everybody who tuned in live for this episode. I greatly appreciate it. Whether you're watching live now, watching later, listening later on whatever podcasting app or platform or medium that you consume this content on, whatever form or fashion, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for your support and whatever ounce or capacity it comes in. If you enjoyed this episode, tell your family and friends and loved ones about this episode or the channel or the show. If you thought this episode or me is terrible, tell your enemies about it and try and make them watch this show and ruin their day. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. Thank you for the kind words for myself and Joe throughout the entirety of this episode. Thank you to everyone who tuned in live, post-live, audio only, visual, whatever you folks got. Your support and your episode consumption means a sincere ton to me, and I'm very thankful for it and very appreciative of it. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night. Godspeed. I will see you tomorrow for an episode of The Film Room and talking about some camp stuff. And then I'll see you next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern for another episode of Disguise Coverage. Until then, Godspeed. And as always,